The Blender community just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and every new artist brings a new trick to the table. I'm on a constant quest to discover as many of those tricks as possible. Today, let's take a look at some amazing techniques and breakdowns you'll definitely want to check out yourself. Starting with this wave texture by the Water Museum. Their setup uses a scrolling texture, basically animating a texture in one direction using coordinates to create that shoreline wave effect. I wanted to understand how it works, but instead of going the traditional scrolling texture route, I rebuilt it using geometry nodes for more control. In my version, the waves actually slide back and forth instead of just fading as the texture scrolls, and the setup is surprisingly simple. You can grab the project file on Gumroad or Patreon. So let's break it down. First, you spawn points into the scene every second using a simulation zone. Then you move those points forward and backward using a sine function. To avoid everything moving in perfect sync, you multiply the sine by a random value so each wave travels at a slightly different pace. After one full cycle, you delete the points. Next, you instance a plane on those points with a foam texture applied. Just make sure the material has transparency enabled. From there, you can push this even further. For example, scaling the texture over the lifetime of the wave so it's longest near the shore and gradually smaller as it moves deeper into the water. And that's just one small trick. If you want to properly learn geometry nodes, from beginner all the way to advanced, I have a full course available. Links are in the description. There are a lot of gamers and streamers out there, and then there's Code Maiko. She's a gamer, developer, streamer, basically everything I'd like to be when I grow up. Her streams feel less like pure entertainment and more like live R&D sessions. She builds her own tech. One of the wildest examples is how she rigged her chair with tracking balls so her digital avatar can physically interact with the environment. That's the kind of stuff that instantly grabs your attention, not just because it's cool, but because it's deeply technical and creative at the same time. There's always something interesting happening on her streams. If you want something great to have on in the background while you work, something where you can casually pick up ideas, tricks, or inspiration, she's absolutely worth watching. More and more artists are embracing AI in the background, and here we have King Monho, showing how he uses it directly in his renders. His workflow is simple but smart. He generates the 3D models with AI, the bike, the character, and since they already come textured, he can focus on polishing them up with extra, unique details so they're no longer generic AI slop. He rigs the characters, creates the animation, and even the background buildings are AI generated. Now, to be fair, none of this really holds up in close-up shots. Not even the bike. Most of the shadows and lighting information are baked straight into the textures, so you lose proper shader response, things like real metalness and surface interaction. But despite those limitations, this is still an efficient way to get a lot of visual detail very quickly. If you want to try a similar workflow, the AI Library Pro add-on for Blender is a solid starting point. Beyond workflows, it also feels like AI is getting close to real-time interaction. We're now seeing videos that basically play like games, generated with tech like Genie 3. One example floating around is a cigarette pack that acts like a playable character. You can move it through the streets, avoid people, and fully control it. What's even more mind-blowing is that almost all the core elements of gameplay are already there. Character control, collisions, physics, even UI elements like health bars. On top of that, you've got particle effects and actual game menus, things you normally expect much later in development. From a systems point of view, it already looks like a playable game. What's missing, at least from what I've seen so far, is meaningful character interaction. There's no real enemy AI, no NPC to NPC behavior, no combat logic or decision-making. Most demos are still just a single character exploring a world with nothing pushing back. That said, this space is moving fast. I'll be keeping an eye out for updates because the moment those interaction layers show up, things are going to get very interesting very quickly. Going back to demos, I watched this render of fries and immediately wanted to try it myself, this time using a new tool I'm working on called Commander. The idea is simple. Instead of clicking through menus one step at a time, you just tell Blender what you want to happen. For example, if I want a potato-like base mesh, I can type something like cube subdivided 6 displace noise object. Blender then creates a cube, adds subdivision, applies a displacement modifier, and sets up a separate object to control the noise coordinates. If I want a water sim, I just type domain water, and the fluid domain is created instantly. There are also buttons for common actions to make certain workflows even faster. The core concept is speed and intent. Command Blender instead of manually building everything piece by piece. I'm still adding more commands, but if you want to try it out, the links are in the description. Next up, CG Matter made a really clever tool that lets a character type an infinite number of words, all driven by geometry nodes. He also provides a full tutorial and breakdown, so if you're curious how something like that is built, it's absolutely worth watching. And if you're into character animation, check out Mugen Pictures doing their thing. I really like that they show their process using Eevee renders instead of the default gray viewport. While gray viewports are efficient, seeing materials and lighting in real time gives you better visual feedback. And honestly, viewport renders with materials are just way more fun to watch. I love this render because of how simple it is. With just a basic array modifier, some well-placed lighting, and strong camera movement, you can turn something very basic into what feels like a Samsung or Apple commercial. Practicing simple renders like this can help a lot, especially for learning composition, lighting, and camera work, which are often what sell the shot more than raw complexity. Now, this one is a bit more complicated, mostly because the right tools just aren't fully available in Blender yet. Yes, you can fracture meshes using the Cell Fracture add-on, but when it comes to proper RBD simulations, Blender tends to struggle. The more robust workflow here is using Houdini, and I'm pretty sure that's what was used for this shot as well. If you want to give it a try, I do have a beginner's course for Houdini to help you get started. Next up, we've got this werewolf transformation, which instantly reminded me of Warwick in Arcane. What makes this even better is that it's all done in Eevee, proof that you can pull off some seriously impressive effects without relying on heavy offline rendering. And finally, we have Life Goals by Zero Blender. They've got some really interesting renders worth checking out if you want more inspiration. All the artists featured here are linked in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.